Everybody, good morning. It's Monday at 9:30, August 17th, 2020. The school system started again this morning, so everybody, the staff is at Boonville High School, and hopefully some of them listened to my Friday morning talk class from the Lake of the Ozarks, where we talk about things that you can do to protect yourself going back to school. So for high school students, college students, teachers, staff, etc. Hi Linda, hi Eileen, good morning. So this morning we're going to still talk about some stuff that you can do to protect yourself during this pandemic. Who knows when it's going to be over, or if. So you've heard me talk several times about supplements that you can take to boost your immunity. So the big six really are zinc, and we'll talk about that dose, vitamin D3 at 5,000 international units. Zinc Ionophores is what we're going to talk about today, just one more addition to your armamentarium against this virus. And then vitamin C, high dose vitamin C we talked about, 3 grams of vitamin C really. And melatonin, high dose melatonin, about 10 milligrams, and then a multivitamin and mineral. So the multivitamins, you want a multivitamin that has copper, iodine, magnesium, selenium, vitamin A, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B3, vitamin B6, vitamin B9, B12, vitamin C, vitamin E, and some zinc in that as well. And plant lectins, we're also going to talk about that, stinging nettle. And I'm going to tell you something that's kind of surprising that you might not have heard, that's coming out of France, and I believe China and Japan as well. Okay, so that antibiotic that shall not be named has been so politicized. We're going to talk about what that really, the mechanism behind why that's thought to help, and it has to do with zinc. Okay, so that particular antibiotic, and I don't want to tag it or anything, is considered a zinc ionophore. And what that means is that the zinc ionophore helps zinc get into the cell to work against SARS-CoV-2, as well as several other viruses. So I think we're going to find out that given the fact of the largeness of this pandemic, they've been talking back since 1995 about all these potential transmissions of disease to humans as we move population centers closer to animals in agricultural areas. So this is something that researchers have been talking about, hi Wendy, for what, 25 years, right? And so it's potential that we all have to protect ourselves with supplements. So all the supplements that we're talking about to boost your immunity. So basically you've got studies showing that the unnamed antibiotic with another unnamed antibiotic shows it's ineffective, along with others suggesting evidence to the contrary. So it's effective. And so I think we first talked about this particular combination in March, maybe. That might have even been February. The shout out for this information is to a guy named Mark Stein. He's a Canadian author. Or no, sorry, not a Canadian author. He's a guy that writes for Medium. I've written for Medium. So here's the source, Mark Stein. You can find him on Medium, S-T-E-I-N. So we shouldn't just ignore the fact that some studies say that that combination is effective and some says it's not ineffective, or some say it's ineffective, so not effective. So there are researchers that say that that doesn't work. There are other researchers that say that it does work, and basically he writes that both are correct. So that particular antibiotic really by itself doesn't have any action against the coronavirus on its own. So there's two critical areas that he writes about to understand why some of these researchers are saying that that unnamed antibiotic may actually be effective. Okay, so we're learning about this virus and how to combat it. There's still no government guidance. I saw a video. Sharon Stone's sister is fighting for her life, as is Sharon Stone's sister's husband, so her brother-in-law. She's lost her mother and her grandmother and her godmother to COVID-19. That's a little burst of activity in her family in Montana. And so testing, you can't get, at least in Montana, she's saying you can't get tested unless you're symptomatic. And so I think her grandmother had a whole bunch of heart thingies, stents and this and that, other thing in place, but she didn't have the symptoms, so they never tested her until it was too late. So the idea is to, one, if you want to get tested, and I'm working on this, I'll have one available in St. Louis, hopefully within the next week or two. It's a finger stick blood test, none of this sticking thing in your nose thing. This is based on antibody testing from polymerase chain reaction. I talked about that Friday. Okay, so why is that antibiotic not effective in studies? Okay, so it might be a fairly simple answer, because by the time you get to the hospital and you're symptomatic, the virus is replicated. Okay, we talk about how this is a messenger RNA virus, and once it takes over your cell mechanism, it's replicating itself and trying to take control of your entire body. And so when you start using a medication, specifically that one antibiotic that we're not going to name, it can take 10 days for the levels in the plasma to reach a dose that would help. Okay, vitamin D is the same way. It takes about 14 days to get your vitamin D level up over 50 using 5,000 international units a day. So that's kind of why that's the recommendation. So really, what we should be doing is optimizing our health by looking at a preventive strategy, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So zinc blocks viral replication. Okay, it's a micronutrient. It's a key for cellular activity, growth, differentiation, and survival of a cell. It is an NMDA antagonist for mental health, and it's a testosterone booster. We won't go through the chemistry of that, even though we could, but it's a bunch of words that I can trip over with my Missouri lingo. And they're estimating that zinc deficiency as you age, and people with high blood pressure and heart disease, the comorbidities that I was talking about, those people tend to be zinc deficient even from their diet. So supplemental zinc for a person as they're aging just makes sense for prevention of viral flu and coronavirus, etc., etc. But without zinc, that particular antibiotic that we won't name is not effective at all. So zinc interferes with the replication of SARS-CoV-2 virus. That's just the way it works. Okay, so his metaphor in his what he's writing is, think of a hammer and a nail, with that antibiotic being the hammer, zinc is the nail. Okay, so viruses are inhibited by zinc. I'm going to read you 11 of them. So the viruses that are inhibited: human coronavirus 229E, MERS coronavirus, if you remember that 2011 epidemic, SARS coronavirus, both 1 and 2. So the SARS coronavirus from China was in 2002, now we're at 2019 and 20. Human immunodeficiency virus, these are all the viruses that zinc interrupts replication. So it inhibits the virus. Number 5, herpes virus. 6, hepatitis C virus. 7, the Zika virus. 8, the Coxsackie virus. 9, equine viral arteritis. 10, Mingo virus, and 11, rhinovirus, which is a common cold virus as well. So the antibiotic, and I'm looking at an article from 2014, and it just says that unnamed antibiotic is a zinc ionophore, so it's used in malaria. This article is from 2014. There's also an article that is scheduled, I guess I've found it's in Medical Hypotheses. It's dated September 2020, and the title is, Does Zinc Supplementation Enhance the Clinical Efficacy of those unnamed antibiotics to win today's battle against COVID-19? And they have a hypothesis very well thought out and written out as to how to go about testing that hypothesis to figure out if that's a true statement or a true hypothesis, right? So, a zinc ionophore transports zinc into the cells. Okay, the reason is that zinc is not fat soluble, cannot cross the cellular membrane, which is a phospholipid bilayer, it's fat, without the help of a fat soluble transporting taxi. So that's how zinc gets into the cell. So it has to get into the cell to stop the replication of the virus. So it's zinc that is doing the interference of viral replication. It's not the ionophore or the taxi. And so, again, that one study says once zinc is in the cells, it is believed that zinc interferes with the replication of SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, so can you get zinc ionophores without a prescription? Well, that's the whole point of this little lesson today. So natural zinc ionophores. So the goal of this his entire argument is not to be controversial and political, but empowering health optimization. So that antibiotic may be a safe drug for short-term use, but logistically as a long-term or preventive COVID-19 strategy, that could potentially be a problem. I mean, there are physicians and researchers that think 2 doses a week may be preventive, but they always say zinc. You got to take zinc. So adding some natural ionophores with zinc during the viral outbreak seems to make sense, right? And it might even make more sense to, since we're being exposed to all these animal-transmitted diseases, to continue to do something preventive. Okay, so I spent a whole class, I think in May, on black seed oil, which is Nigella sativa. Black cumin oil, all research has been done in the Middle East, hardly anything in the United States, but it's been around 4,000 years and it's been used medicinally for 4,000 years. So it has a strong synergy as a zinc ionophore and an alternative to that unnamed antibiotic for past and current coronaviruses. I'm not saying any of this is going to be a cure, because that's the C word is kind of a hard thing to say. It's a prevention strategy. So most of this is potential, but these are supplements and natural food sources for zinc ionophores to help zinc get into your cells. Okay, when we did that class on black cumin, black seed oil, it had all those amazing properties, so I wound up taking it. Antiviral, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, inflammatory, immunomodulatory, bronchodilating, antihistamine, antitussive active actions. So that would be helpful for all those COVID-19 symptoms. And it's also an antihypertensive, so it lowers blood pressure. It's anti-obesity, it helps with weight loss. It's anti-diabetic, it lowers type 2 diabetes incidence. Anti-hyperlipidemic, so it affects cholesterol or lipid levels. It's anti-ulcer, and it has been used in cancer patients as well, as have those unnamed antibiotics been used off-label for cancer treatments. Okay, so that's black seed oil. Number 2, cinchona bark or quinine. It's a source of quinine. And so there was a St. Louis DO that was kind of ostracized by a lot of people by saying just drink Schweppes tonic water and you get quinine. Well, there's not as much quinine in tonic water, I guess, as there used to be. But the history of quinine, for instance, the British troops used quinine in tonic water as an anti-malarial because of the zinc ionophore activity. So quinine containing cinchona bark, easy to get, is more likely a more optimal quinine source than tonic water. Okay, number 3 is green tea. and I'm going to try to pronounce this with my slur Missouri accent, epigallocatechin gallate, or EGCG, is the antioxidant that delivers green tea's health benefits. So after that, we're just going to say green tea. So it's got polyphenols, flavonols, flavonolds, flavonoids, and phenolic acids in it. High in antioxidant potential, and it is shown to be effective in protection against esophageal, tracheal, lung, breast, prostate, and colon cancer. Okay, non-smokers and smokers over 5 times and nearly 13 times higher risk of lung cancer, lower lung cancer compared to control groups containing just 1 cup or more green daily green tea. So green tea just in 1 cup isn't enough. However, there is a hypothesis in Japan where they drink an inordinate amount of green tea, and Japan has very low numbers. I'm thinking like the city of Tokyo, the last time I looked, it only had 29 cases or something ridiculously low for such a huge populated city. Okay, quercetin. Okay, that's the one that's on the bottle from Life Extension. That's how easy this one is to find. It's an antioxidant and a zinc ionophore to help transport zinc into infected cells. Okay, it also improves antioxidant defense, and it helps with the bioavailability of that thing I tripped over in green tea. Okay, the common dose is 500 to 1,000 milligrams per day. So typically 400 to 600 milligrams supplement 1 to 3 times a day. Quercetin. Okay, stinging nettle. Okay, this is a plant lectin, blocks the replication of coronavirus in previous studies at multiple sites upon a 3 to 4 day incubation and infection period. Okay, so early in the viral replication cycle, stinging nettle may help prevent, with zinc, prevent viral replication and potentially symptomatic COVID-19. Okay, so the other one that's come up out of France, I told you be surprised, is nicotine. So they're finding in Europe and France, southern China, and Japan, where they have fairly high smoking rates. I think we're at 25% smokers in the United States. In Europe, I was amazed how many people just smoking. When I was in Italy, a pack of cigarettes 10 years ago was $9. But they smoke. I mean, I sat and watched Italians smoke all the time. France, same way. Japan, heavy smoking, and they have lower rates. Japan has the lowest. They have lower rates of COVID-19, and there's a theory from France that nicotine is the zinc ionophore that's, and there's a antagonist property to an NDMA that's involved with nicotine as well. There's a medication for Alzheimer's that has the same type of mechanism of action called Namenda. Menandine, I think is what it's called. So they're kind of looking at that because of the same kind of mechanism of action as nicotine. Okay, so France, and I can't find where I read this, but France has halted all sales, over-the-counter sales, of nicotine patches so that they have enough to be able to test that French hypothesis about nicotine. Okay, what about natural, non-supplemental stuff? So, quercetin food sources. Okay, so fruits, grains, seeds, vegetables. Quercetin is known as the master flavonoid. What we don't know is what the zinc ionophore dosage is for foods, but if you're eating them, you're getting some, right? So the top sources, and actually the best one is capers. Capers, and the most commonly used is apples. So red apples have quercetin in it. Asparagus, beans, berries, broccoli, buckwheat, celery, cherries, citrus, cocoa, coffee, coriander, dill, red grapes, honey, kale, yuck, red lettuce, all kinds of onions, green and yellow peppers, red wine, tea, both black and green tea, and tomatoes. There's your quercetin food sources. The benefits of quercetin, or you can take a life extension supplement if you want. It's antibacterial, antihistamine, antiviral. It inhibits COX-2 enzymes and C-reactive protein, which are the inflammatory molecules. It blocks pro-inflammatory cytokines like tumor necrosis factor and interleukin-6. We talked about that in the first talk about cytokine storm when this first hit. Free radical protection. It increases diamine oxidase enzyme activity to block histamine release, which is involved in allergies and mast cells and inflammation. Increases glutathione. We did a whole class on glutathione. Possible anti-cancer and anti-tumor actions. Reduces oxidative fat cell damage, and it stimulates the overall antioxidant defense of your body. Okay. Okay. So for zinc, a lot of the studies that were done on those unnamed antibiotics did not use zinc. Some did. However, by the time you're in the hospital and you're on a ventilator or you're gasping for air, more than likely the coronavirus is taking over control of your body. Okay, with all the microembolic events, etc. So in hospital, once you get some symptoms, I've been telling people 50 milligrams a day. Turns out I just read a study; it's 15 to 30 milligrams is fine. Long-term 50 milligrams, you can maybe get some symptoms. I've been doing it for 5 months, 50 milligrams a day. I've had no symptoms. And then you up it to 220, 200, 220. If you start getting the sniffles and symptoms that you might think you will have COVID-19, long-term use of that would be difficult. There's too many. There's copper and iron disturbances, and you can disturb your gut microbiome, your second brain. Okay, so food-based zinc. So I gave you the quercetin ones. Food-based zinc is beans, cocoa, chocolate, dairy products, eggs, fortified cereal, hemp, nuts, red meat, poultry, shellfish, and nuts. Okay, you can take supplements. The best one, I think, is zinc picolinate. That seems to be the one that is absorbed the best over zinc oxide. So it comes as zinc acetate, citrate, gluconate, orotate, oxide, picolinate, and sulfate. And they're saying that the World Health Organization for zinc deficiencies, 1.4 to 1.5% of male and female deaths worldwide from zinc deficiency. So with the continued spread of this virus all over the world, you would expect that statistic to go up unless people are taking supplements, right? So generally, 15 milligrams a day is preventive, 30 milligrams a day to correct a deficiency. You could get a zinc level. There's ways to do that. I doubt that your doctor would write one, but Life Extension has a direct pay lab. So if you want a zinc level, you can do that. Okay. So 40 milligrams per day is this guy's tolerable upper intake, not to cause any side effects. I've been doing 50. Over 200 a day, you can get cramps, diarrhea, headaches, loss of appetite, nausea, and vomiting. So short term for that. So that's at 5 to 10 days, 200 milligrams if you're symptomatic. And then if you keep going past 50, you can get copper and iron deficiency, you lower your HDL immune function, and there can be nervous system toxicity. So basically what this is forcing everybody to do is really look at what the potential protective mechanisms of healthy diet, sun, multivitamin, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, there's my Missouri. And so it's kind of things that going forward, hopefully people are going to pay more attention to supplemental things that you can do to protect yourself instead of relying on no direction from the FDA, the World Health Organization, the CDC, or relying on a $3,000 a dose pharmaceutical product. Wouldn't it be better to just protect yourself and perhaps not get symptomatic COVID-19? You are probably going to be exposed. And my former partner, Noel Williams, was talking about herd immunity on his video, I think last night. He does an update fairly often, like 3 or 4 times a week, fascinating. He reads all kinds of literature, so I kind of listen to him every time I get a chance. So hopefully you learned something about protecting yourself and preventing a symptomatic COVID-19 infection in yourself. This is all without prescriptions. You don't need to go see a doctor to do this. I'm kind of giving you what the literature is showing and what they're studying. I'm not advocating everybody start smoking, but apparently there is some protection from nicotine. And I think a non-smoker would still have trouble with a nicotine patch unless they use the small one. And I'm not even advocating that. I'm saying take those 6 supplements and eat well, get rid of sugar, get rid of simple carbohydrates, and keep yourself from getting symptomatic COVID-19. So Wednesday we'll talk about something else other than coronavirus. I'll give you some other interesting little tidbits. And I hope you all have a great day. We're back to school in Boonville. Let's cross our fingers. We'll see what happens. The students come back next Monday, and I start teaching on campus next Tuesday, face to face. So I'll talk to you Wednesday morning. Have a great day. Peace and health, everybody, and I'll see you later. Bye.